Okay, good morning, children. I want you all to rename yourself with your names. If your parents' name is there, please remove that name. I will enable the renaming option. Okay, so that I have done it. So, because here I can see the phones make Oppo and all that. So, some of the usernames are showing like that. Okay, so rename yourselves because I've enabled the renaming option. Who is Oppo F11? Oppo F11, please rename yourself. Shrishti. Okay. Yes. Who is Flame Psycho? I'll remove them. Listen, if you don't rename yourself, I will remove that participant from the meeting. Because now, we are having a lot of security issues with Zoom. And these things you have to follow. You have to put the name that you are, your student name. I don't want to see any other name there. And if I see an unknown name, I am going to remove the participant from the meeting. Who is Mr. Y? Again, whoever is Mr. Y, rename yourself. Okay, children, you all are reading in the newspapers also. Everywhere you're, reading articles, even on the net about all the security issues in Zoom, right? We cannot, let me tell you certain do's and don'ts, okay? First thing is, you should not give your ID and passport to anybody. I mean, okay. Just do thumbs up and show me if you can see the PPT. Thank you. Okay. Just give me a minute. Yeah. In our last class, children, we were doing the comparative study of early Vedic and later Vedic period. So we have already seen how was the political system, how the small villages which were called Janas became Mahajanapadas and big kingdoms, how the Rajan, who was actually advised by the Sabha and the Samiti, he got, later on, he had a council of ministers, and his position, which was not ritualized, which got ritualized, and so many ceremonies were held to, to strengthen his position. So these all things we saw. Then we saw the stages of life, brahmacharya and what is that? Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa, all the 4 stages of life. All this came about in the later Vedic period. In the early Vedic period, people didn't have any such demarcations about their life and all. It was a simple thing. Whatever in the family, whatever they used to follow, the children used to follow what the elders used to say. And then we also saw the caste system, how it developed. In the early Vedic period, the caste system was very flexible. It was there, some kind of demarcation was there, but that demarcation was based on what do you say, your occupation, which was okay, whoever did whatever, and they were not very strict, you know, just there was this priestly class, there was the warrior class, and everybody else was in the third class except the priestly and the warrior class. Everybody else came in the third class. And whoever the children, when they are born, whatever occupation they are comfortable with, they used to do. And there was no problem in intercaste marriages and all, because it was not fixed. So a Brahmin son can be a Vaishya, Vaishya's son can be a Brahmin, a Kshatriya's son can be a Brahmin. So there was nothing like that. And then interclass marriages and all were allowed. But this system became rigid when in the later Vedic period, because status was associated with the classes. So the priests were on top of the pyramid. So they were the well-educated caste. So they were highly respected, and also they advised the king. So they had a very special position. Then came the kings and the Kshatriyas, the warriors, because of their power and their physical strength also, they became very strong and they were second in line. Then came all the skilled people, whatever may be their profession, as long as they have a skill, they were the third part, that is Vaishya. Whether you're a trader, you're a farmer, you're a sculptor, or whatever you are a Vaishya. And came the last one, and that is the Shudra. Shudras were people who did not have any specific skill, so they used to help all the other three classes. The other three classes, they were like servants, they used to help them. Now, so once it became rigid, you know, so going to another caste means getting married between castes, different castes and all, they stopped. And so these were some of the differences we saw. Now we are going to see, today we are going to see what did people do during their Brahmacharya ashram. Brahmacharya means the first 25 years of their life. We know that was that stage of life was to be spent in studying, gaining knowledge, and spending time with the Guru. So how did they do that? That is what we are going to see today. Here there is no much difference between early and Vedic period, early and later Vedic period. In both the Vedic periods, the Gurukul system was the same. Only thing, more and more people started getting educated in the later Vedic period. Okay. So what was the Gurukul system? Gurukul system means children were required to go and live with the Guru. So there was no day school like you people come. You come in the morning and evening 3 o'clock you go back home. So this is called a day school. And this system is not a day school. Gurukul system is like a boarding school where you have to live there only. So they had to live with the Guru. And as they were living with the Guru almost became like a father. The Guru became a father, and Guru's wife became like a mother to the children. And they used to live in the forest. The Gurus and Rishis used to live in the forest. Their ashrams were big, and they were very simple places to live. And they used to be in the jungle. So naturally, the children had to do a lot of household work. Okay, living with the Guru, they had to help the Guru and the Guru's wife. They used to call the Guru's wife as Guru Ma. So she was Ma. So Guru Ma. So they have to help the Guru Ma by cleaning the ashram, going and bringing firewood from the jungle for cooking, and any other things, you know, whatever they have to do. Whatever task was there in and around the ashram, they all had to do. All the students had to do the work. So they were required to do household chores. And then after they completed their studies, they used to give a Guru Dakshina. That was like fees. Okay, but after completing, they used to give the Dakshina. And what was the Guru Dakshina? There was nothing fixed. So it was not like this, that if you do so much, you have to pay so much. That was not the system. 1 minute. Okay. the system was, what do you say, whatever the guru asks, that was Guru Dakshina. So in those days, Guru's position was so sacred and so high. In fact, Guru was compared to God, because Guru is like somebody who people used to consider even greater than God, because whatever knowledge that they get, they know only from the Guru, and Guru only shows them the path towards God. I think in Hindi also you are learning some lesson about Kabir Das poems, right? Aarti ma'am must be teaching you Sakhi. Okay, so in that I think the very first doha is saying that only, that if the Guru and the and God, both of them come in front of me, I will prostrate. I will prostrate means I will do namaskar. I will do namaskar to my Guru first, and then I will do to God. This is what Kabir Das is saying. Kabir Das is saying, I will prostrate to my Guru first, and then only I will prostrate to God. Why? Why? Because I don't know who is God. I came to know about God only through my Guru. My Guru is showing me the way to God. So for me, he is even higher than God. So that is the kind of respect and the feeling that they have. So children, if we study our scriptures, and if we, study all these mythology and all these books, if we study, we get to, listen and know about all these values. We learn all these values, which is very important for you all also, children. You should know, and you also should give the same kind of respect to your teachers. Remember, sometimes the teacher may know less than you. I have told this many times to the children whom I have taught. It is not the question of whether the teacher knows more than you. There is no need for the teacher to be more brilliant than the student. But whatever you are learning from the teacher. Teacher is only a guiding force. She can tell you, okay, even if she or he doesn't know something, they can tell you where to look for that information or where to see. So they are guides, and they have to be respected all your lives. I can give you an example. Now, Sachin Tendulkar was everything. He is considered to be the god of cricket. He's such a great, cricketer. Do you think the people who taught Sachin cricket, they knew more than Sachin? Do you think? Maybe they were not as talented, or they did not know so much about cricket, but they were his teachers. If they knew so much, or if their talent was that much, they themselves would have become like Sachin, isn't it? So the question here is not that. The question here is, every teacher is worthy of respect, because she or he is guiding you and telling you and giving you a lot of information, knowledge, values, everything. So we have to respect our teachers. So when we come back to school also, I want to see that you guys are, improving in your behavior, and you will never ever use bad words even among yourselves for teachers. You may not like a teacher. I have told this also before. It's not necessary that we should like all our teachers. Even if we don't like a particular teacher, she or he has to be respected. That respect part, you cannot compromise. You have to respect. You cannot use bad language when you're talking about a teacher. You have to be respectful. You may not like. That's a personal opinion. That's okay. We can live with that. Okay. So you guys have to remember this. So this was the how the students used to respect their teachers. And what did they learn in the Gurukul? They learned about the Puranas. We already learned that Puranas are stories, mythological stories from the Vedas. Okay, so they learned Puranas, they learned Sanskrit grammar, they learned ethics, moral values. Ethics and logic were two things which were very important for future kings. Who used to go to the Gurukul those days? Actually, getting education was not so common. Everybody never used to go to the Gurukul and get education. Those who were Kshatriyas, okay, that too, those who were from princely families who were going to become future kings. And those who are Brahmins, of course. For Brahmins, getting Vedic knowledge is the first condition. They have to know all this because they are going to become gurus and they are going to become priests in future. So they too have to learn. Apart from them, the Kshatriya princes used to come to the Gurukul and they used to get knowledge. For them, things like ethics and knowledge is so important. Why? Because as a king, every day he will have people coming to him for justice. In those days, there was no law court or there was no something Supreme Court, High Court. If people had fights or any kind of difficulties, wherever they felt that they have not got justice, they used to come to the king only and say that this is what happened to me, it is unfair. Now the king should have the knowledge and the wisdom to decide what is correct and what is wrong, and to give punishment to the wrong person and establish order, law and order in his kingdom, isn't it? So that is why this subjects like ethics and logic was very, very important for the kings. Mathematics, of course, and then warfare, because they are kings, Kshatriyas, they should know warfare. Defending their kingdom was the biggest job that they had. So warfare. So the guru used to teach all these subjects to the children, and the same thing was there in later Vedic period. Now we will see what else. Okay, what about the religious difference? Till now we saw what was the difference in society. Okay, now we are going to see the religious difference. In early Vedic period, nature gods were very important, like Agni, Vayu, Indra, all these were nature gods. Agni, god of fire, Vayu, god of wind, Indra, god of thunder. And now Indra was the king of all the gods. He was the king of all the gods. He was like Zeus. You know, in Greek mythology, all of you are familiar. Even our this thing, you know, our houses are also named after Greek gods in our school. So Zeus was god of not Zeus or Poseidon. Yeah, Zeus, I think. Zeus only. He was the god of all the other gods. So like that, even Indra was the god of all the other gods. And then Varuna, we had so many other gods also. Varuna was the god of water, seas and water. And he is supposed to be the consoler of nature. That means whenever nature becomes very, fierce, then Varuna god only calms her down. That is the belief. So another thing, these people used to give lot of importance for yajnas. Remember I told you, there were, in early Vedic period, there was no temple, no idol worship, there was no, murtis of gods and all in the temples. How did they worship? What they used to do in the open, ground, where not inside the houses, outside the house, in an open place, they used to have havan. So they used to light a fire and they used to keep putting the, offerings in the fire. And they used to pray. They used to chant mantras and they used to pray. Now, what was the logic behind that? The logic was, Agni was the messenger of God. He was the messenger who takes all our messages to heaven. So we believe that heaven is somewhere on top, okay, above, in the heaven. Heaven means it is up somewhere. This is our belief. So what do? When we burn a fire and we keep putting all the havan samagri and everything in that, and then we chant, all smoke comes out of the fire. The smoke goes up, it goes to the sky. So we believe that in the sky, the gods live in the sky. Heaven is in the sky. So all the smoke goes up and our messages are going to God. This is what they believe. That is why yajnas were performed in the early Vedic period, and sacrifices were not part. Sacrifice, as I told you, is different from yajna. Sacrifice is actually killing some animal and giving it as a present to God. Okay. So that is a sacrifice. Though they used to do yajna, they never used to do sacrifices. And they used to only pray to all the nature gods. In later Vedic period, three important gods became very important. One was the creator, one was the protector, and one was the destroyer. So they were the Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Mahesh. He's either called Shiva or Mahesh. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So Trinity. They are called three gods, so they are called Trinity. Now, Brahma is the creator. So whatever is created in this world is created by Brahma. Vishnu is the protector of all the people who are all the living people, human beings. He is the protector. That is why, children, we see in our mythology, it is Vishnu. He keeps coming and being born on earth in different avatars. Correct? Vishnu only was born as a fish. Vishnu was born as a turtle. Vishnu was born as what do you say? Kurma. Kurma is turtle. Matsya, Kurma, Varaha. Varaha is a boar. Okay, then he was born as Rama, he was born as Krishna, he was born as Gautam Buddha. So all these avatars that we have seen, all these stories that we already know. Who is this? This is Vishnu. This is Vishnu who has been born again and again on this earth. Why? He was born here because to establish dharma. So whenever pap or whenever the adharma or sins become more and more in the world, then God comes, takes the form, takes a human form and comes on this earth to set right all the things. This is the belief. So Vishnu is the protector. So he keeps coming, taking avatars, and he keeps coming to the earth to protect the people. Then Shiva is the destroyer. So destroyer means what? Destroyer of evil. Whatever is bad is destroyed by Shiva. So these three gods became very important, and all the nature gods were there, but they were not as important as the Trinity. Indra and Agni and all, they lost the importance that they had in the early Vedic period. Even now we pray to Indra, Agni and all, but not in the same way. Now they started sacrifices. Along with the Yajnas, they started sacrifices. And then in every Yajna, they needed a Brahmin to perform, because rituals became very complicated. In the later Vedic period, what did Brahmins do? They complicated the rituals and introduced many ceremonies and everything, which the normal man did not know. So the normal man couldn't perform his own puja, so he always needed a Brahmin to perform it. That is how the Brahmins increased their position. Okay. Then idol worship started. So they started building temples and installing idols of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva to pray. And then new philosophies came, karma, dharma, moksha. So earlier this was not there, but all these new doctrines developed. Karma means we have to face the consequences of our actions. Dharma means to live our life according to right ways, right principles, morals and all. Moksha is if we live our life in the correct way, then we can escape the cycle of birth and death. Okay, we don't have to be born again on this planet. That is moksha. So they started believing in these three things. Belief in rebirth also started, because they said that Atma or the soul is indestructible, so it cannot die. So if it has not attained moksha, then it has to get rebirth on this earth. Did you understand? That is the concept. Now coming to the economy, how did people earn their livelihood? In the early Vedic period, it was pastoral. Pastoral means they were nomadic people who started, what do you say, they used to only graze cows and sheep and all that. Okay, that was the main occupation. So they had flocks and flocks of sheep, or they had so many cows, herds of cows and all, that they used to keep on taking from one place to another. So that was pastoral. And here it was later Vedic period, it is agrarian, because they started doing agriculture. They settled down in one place and did agriculture. So it was agrarian. Understand the meaning of pastoral and agrarian. Now in the early Vedic period, cow was very important, and cow was synonymous to wealth. That means like money. Cow was like money. In those days, when the kings wanted to give gifts to the gurus or the rishis, they used to give gifts. They used to give cows. What they used to give? Cows, 100 cows. So that is great. That's the biggest gift you can give to anybody. So cow was synonymous to wealth. And in fact, king was called Gopati. Go means what? Go means cow. Pati. Pati means the king or the lord. So one who owns thousands of cows is called a Gopati. Okay. And Godhan. Godhan means dhan, which is actually cows. Okay. Godhan. All this was very important. Now, consumption of barley. So they did not eat rice. They used to grow barley those days in early Vedic period. But in later Vedic period, rice was grown. And they used to call it by many names. It was called Vrihi, Tandul, okay? Tandula, Vrihi. All these were the names for rice. Then in early Vedic period, they were leather workers, weavers, chariot makers, carpenters. These were the occupations. And in the later Vedic period, jewelry making, okay, jewelry making and weaving was done by women in the house. And then metal work also was started, okay, because iron, we don't know, iron was discovered in the beginning of later Vedic period. So lot of metal work, metallurgy, using iron and making, what do you say, weapons or utensils or tools, everything. So blacksmiths. So they also started, blacksmith is also one of the new occupations that came about in the later Vedic period. Also new occupations like physicians and musicians. So physicians are doctors, musicians of course. So doctors and musicians. So these were some new occupations which developed in the later Vedic period. In the early Vedic period, there was trade. Trade was there. Definitely trade was there. Barter system was there. But this trade became very big, and proper markets were there, and trade guilds were formed in the later Vedic period. We know what is the meaning of guild. Guild means all the traders in one area used, or in one kingdom, used to join hands with each other and not allow outside traders to come and sell their things in their market. Monopoly. Did you understand? Monopolizing the market is called forming a guild. Okay. So traders formed guilds to protect their business. And then coins. Apart from barter system, in the later Vedic period, coins were also introduced by Aryans. But even in the later Vedic period, barter only was there. Barter system only was dominant, but the usage of coins had started. Okay. Then coming to a comparative study between Indus and Vedic. So Indus, children, is more like an urban system. There were no villages as such. There were small places which were all cities only. The layout of the civilization was like a city. Vedic civilization was more of a rural civilization. And later it went on. Later it became urban, Vedic also. And then icon worshippers. See, in Indus Valley, they worship Shiva, Mother Goddess, and all these were all statues. Statues of Mother Goddess was there. Pictures of Shivas and all were there. So they believed in icon worship. Whereas in Vedic period, when we come to, at least in early Vedic period, there were no idols and no icons. People only worship nature. Then Indus people were ignorant of the use of different metals. All they knew was only bronze. They knew only bronze, isn't it? Whereas late in Vedic period, iron was discovered. So they knew the use of various metals. And then domestication of animals was not so, important in the Indus Valley. Whereas in Vedic period, cow was a very important animal which used to give all types of food. We know that a single cow can give us lot of things. From milk we get curd, from curd and milk we get butter, and then we get cheese. So many things we get from cows. So cows were very important, and they were revered, and they were literally worshipped. Cows were worshipped in the Vedic period, and that practice continues till today. Till today, uh, for Hindus, cows are very sacred. That's why we don't kill cows, or we don't eat the meat of cows, because cows are like mother. How can you kill your mother? Cow is giving us so many things, isn't it? We grow up and we get nourished. Our body gets nourished with cow's milk and all the things that a cow gives. So we consider that a cow is like a mother. So because of that sentiment and that emotion, we cannot kill cows. Okay. Then practiced earth burial. So if somebody died in Indus Valley, what did they do? They used to bury the body. They used to dig the ground and they used to bury the body. Whereas in Vedic period, the system of cremation of bodies. What is cremation? Cremation means burning the body, not burying it. In Hindus, even now, the system of disposing dead bodies is cremation. Okay? Most of the Hindus, they practice cremation only. There are, of course, some Hindus who still do burials. Okay? But basically, all Hindus, they cremate the bodies. So they burn the bodies. Then Harappans believe Harappans, we know and we believe very strongly that they are the original inhabitants of India. Whereas Aryans, we know they have come from Central Asia, right? So these are some of the differences between Indus civilization and Vedic civilization. So with that, children, we have come to an end of this, what do you say? This lesson, this chapter. 10:20. I think our time is also up, or what? No, when does it have? 9:50 to 10:30. I think 10:30. So we have 10 more minutes. Please use chat to ask your questions. I have to start. We are lagging behind ABC. ABC has started Jainism, Buddhism today. So one class behind we are. Was untouchability associated with Shudras? Rucha, I had answered this question last time also, not in the Vedic period. This untouchability and all came later, much later in life. We don't even know which time it came. It was much later, not at all in the Vedic period. If a lower class like Shudras or Vaishyas wanted to impart knowledge eagerly at the Gurukul, were they allowed? Impart knowledge or get knowledge? They were not allowed. Let me tell you, caste system was very fixed in those days, and they were not allowed to get an education. At least Shudras, so definitely not. They were not allowed to get any kind of this thing. And then, what is pastoral? Okay, pastoral means pasture. Pasture means a grassy area is called pasture. Okay, a big area which has grass is called pasture. So we need big pastures for the cows to eat grass, isn't it? So that economy is called pastoral economy. So in early Vedic period, because the cows needed grass and they used to go for cow grazing, that is why it is called a pastoral economy. That means the main occupation was cow grazing. How did the Vedic period decline? Decline means it's not like a decline. There was no such decline as such. The same principles went on following until Jainism and Buddhism came. Buddhism and Jainism came, and slowly the Vedic age declined. So that is our next topic. So we will be studying about that. Okay. Any amusement or entertainment during Vedic period? Yeah, amusement, entertainment was hunting, same things. Hunting and singing songs, okay, playing the different musical instruments. Chariot the races, they used to make chariots. So chariot races used to be there. So those were the amusements. What is agrarian? Agrarian means agriculture. Agriculture is the main occupation. So agrarian economy, where women allowed to do business. Business. See, you cannot, business in those days was not like how we know it today. There were simple things that they used to produce and sell. Mostly women in those days had household responsibilities. Even if they make at home, they used to make many things. Probably it was sold by their husbands. They wouldn't go out and do all this. They would make a lot of things, like they would weave. Just now in our slide we saw, no, that women making jewelry at home, weaving at home, all this was done by women. Yeah, but it was sold by men. Allowed in the fields, probably yes. Maybe women were allowed in fields, yes. They used to help their husbands in the fields. Earth burial means digging the ground and burying the body inside the ground is earth burial. I think we have now, I have covered all the questions related to this. I think today I want to start Jainism, Buddhism. So let us just do the introductory part at least. So I will feel happy that I have started the new chapter. Okay. So, right. Where is this? Okay. So now we are coming to the next part. Somebody asked me, how did Vedic civilization decline? It did not decline. Vedic civilization is the practices that the Aryans used, or how they lived and what they did. We are doing even today. Even today, those practices are existent. So we can't say it declined, but for temporarily, for some time, it became less. Okay. Why? It became less because I just told you about the Brahmin class. The Brahmin class who you complicated the religion. Remember, in the later Vedic period, the Brahmins introduced many rituals and ceremonies. And these rituals and ceremonies, ordinary man, an ordinary person could not do these rituals, okay, on his own. First of all, he didn't understand how to do all these things. Plus, he never got education in Sanskrit or Vedas. He didn't know Sanskrit. So reading the Vedas and all also was out of question. Because of the caste system, certain classes were not allowed to get education. So they did not know the language. Even those, normally Sanskrit was not the a medium of communication. That was not the normal language that was spoken by the people. Sanskrit was more like a literary language that was written. Okay. So that was written in books and we used to study it, but it was not the language of communication. So because of all these things, a common man started feeling very distant from religion. He started feeling that he is away from God. Now, we all know that, when we want, especially all of us, we are all selfish people, right? Whenever we are, when everything is fine and everything is going on happy, we don't remember God. Do we remember God? We don't. When we are very happy in life and we are having a lot of fun, who God? Which God? What God? So we don't know who is God. And when a slightest problem comes in our life, immediately we rush to God. So that time we remember God. When exam is there, immediately we'll remember God. Oh my God, God, please, please, I have to do, the paper has to be extremely easy. Whatever I studied, I should get 100 on 100. Oh God, please, please. That time we remember God, isn't it? So this is how we are. So that is the way we have always been. Not now, even from Vedic times, we have been like that only. So common people, when they had problems, they used to look to religion for solutions. See, they used to think that if I do some kind of a puja, then God will be pleased with me and he will remove my troubles. But doing those pujas, he didn't know how to do them himself, by himself. So he has to go to the Brahmana. He has to go to the Brahmana and say, please, I need, these are my difficulties and can you suggest some puja? And these Brahmins, they used to suggest. They used to say, you have this problem, then you have to do this yajna or this kind of puja you have to do, fine. But to do that puja, they used to charge fees. They used to ask for money, the priests. So when they asked for money, many people were not able to afford or give money for those rituals. So when they can't give money, then they cannot be, the puja was not conducted. So that way, many people felt that religion has become very expensive, very costly, and they can't afford it. Another reason was some classes were debarred. Some classes, the Brahmins would not go to their houses and perform any pujas in their house. So if that was the things, and even those people, I'm talking even after the Vedic period. I'm talking after, as the Vedic civilization went on progressing, that time, all this caste system and all became so rigid and all at that time. So the Shudras and all, especially Brahmins, would not go to their houses and perform pujas. Now, what will he do? If he wants to feel connected to God, or if he wants to do a puja, what will he do? So these were some of the problems that was happening in that time, and that is why it led to emergence of new religions, okay, in around the 6th century BC. That means we know that 1000 to 500 BC was the Vedic period. The real Vedic period was from 1500 BC to 1000 BC was early Vedic period, and 1000 BC to 500 BC was later Vedic period. So the core, if you say talk, is between that 1000 years. After that 1000 years, that means after 500 BC, it started deteriorating. The society started deteriorating, and 6th century BC, nearly 450 years after the later Vedic period, after 450 years were over, at that time, many important changes happened in the world. See, children, every now and then there will be a big shake-up in the world. Okay, something drastic and something new will come. Okay, so existing practices, they will go on and on and on and on for a long time, and then that will end. It has to end, and something new has to come. That is the law of nature. So like that, around 6th century BC, in different parts of the world, different religions, new religions came, like Zoroastrianism in Persia. Okay, in Persia also a thinker called Zarathustra. Okay, Zarathustra was a thinker, and he started Zoroastrianism in Persia. Confucius is the sage, or he's the rishi, we can say, Chinese monk, and he started Confucianism in China. Okay, that was a new religion. So like that, different religions came here and there. And in India, we had Mahavira and Gautama, two people who started two new religions called Jainism and Buddhism. So Mahavira started Jainism and Gautam Buddha started Buddhism. This was a time when all the orthodox beliefs were challenged. As I already told you, there were so many problems that people were so fed up of their all these things, all these caste system and all these practices and this ritualism and all these things, where people were fed up with all these things. So naturally they needed something new, and at that time these monks came and they established two new religions. Jainism and Buddhism emerged as the most potent religious movements. So among the whole world, even in the whole world, Jainism and Buddhism became more popular. Okay, especially Buddhism, more than Jainism, Buddhism. Okay, now we'll see. What do we come to know about, from where do we come to know about Jainism? Which are the sources? Okay, I think I have no time. I'll just finish this and we'll end. So Angas are the main sources, children. Angas are Jain scriptures. Okay, they were called Agamas. Agamas because they came from the mouth of Lord Mahavira. Lord Mahavira, after he got enlightenment, when he spoke, when he told things, that whatever he spoke is called the Angas or the Agamas. That is called Agamas. This Agamas was compiled into 12 books. Okay, so 12 parts. What is Anga? Anga means part. So there are 12 parts in this Angas. That is why it is called Dwadashangi. Dwadash means 12. Okay, Dwadash. Do or dash. Dash kya hai? Das. Dwa is 2. Dwadash. 2 and 10, 12. So Dwadashangi. So Dwadashangi means there are 12 parts in Angas. Okay, so all the 12 parts together are called Angas. So in our next class, we will read a little more about Angas, we'll come to know, and we will come to know other sources of Buddhism and this thing. Then we will talk about this. Okay, have a great day, children. I will post questions related to the last part of our Vedic chapter today. That scanned images which I sent, for the last question which I will be given today, I will ask for comparison on the basis of religion, on the basis of economy, on the basis of society. Marks, those points are marked in the table. Remember, there is a table in the last part of the lesson. Okay, you open the scanned images, there is a table. Comparison between early Vedic period and later Vedic period. Open that table. In that I have marked the points. You will write those points only. Okay, S is for society, E is for economy, R is for religion. I have written S, I have written E, I have written R also. Clear? Okay, 1 minute. So all of you are clear, right? So you guys have to write that answer. Okay, and next Friday I think we have a class. So we will see you. Bye-bye. Bye.